Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, this episode is going to be interesting. It might trigger some people. Some people might get aggravated. So, some people might say, why are you talking about plant medicine? And I'm going to tell you because I watched a documentary called Change Your Mind on Netflix, and it really interested me how certain plant medicines can help with PTSD, depression, anxiety. And I don't use it personally, guys, so I don't have any personal knowledge, but my brother Mike definitely does. He's a 30-year law enforcement officer. He's also a veteran and first responder advocate. So we're going to be talking about all things recovery, plant medicine, PTSD, anxiety, depression. And guys, if you stay till the end, I'm going to give you an offer. If you invest $30 with me, you will get over $997 worth of value just by investing $30 with me. But we'll talk about it at the end. Mike, my brother, welcome to the show.
Richard, thank you very much for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Bro, I'm so grateful that Tammy Vincent put us together. She's an amazing person. She's been on my show. I've been on her show. So I want to give a big shout out to Tammy. So my first question is, before I forget, because I have a traumatic brain injury, and if I don't ask, I will forget it. What is your definition of resiliency?
That's a great question, Richard. I guess my definition would be suffering a loss or a setback, but not letting it stop you. You get right back on your feet and you start going at it again. Never quitting.
Okay. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up, because this is very near and dear to my heart. I have two friends. My friend Kevin, and he was a police officer, on-duty incident, and he has a podcast now, the Suffering Podcast, great podcast. And then his partner, also a first responder, police officer, on-duty incident, and he didn't get hurt, but he took the perpetrator's life. And just about 4 months ago, he took his own life because he couldn't deal with it. So this is very near and dear to me. You know, this touches me. You know, this is the stuff that, because, you know, guys, if you guys are watching this, something I don't hear a lot talked about on a lot of podcasts, but I want to talk about it today. I'm actually going to write it down so we talk about it a little bit more later. Is moral injury. Because a lot of people don't realize that veterans and first responders see and do shit that no veteran or first responder should ever see or do. And a lot of us can't deal with it after the fact. So that's why this episode is going to mean a lot to me. And then hopefully it's going to be able to save some lives. So, you're an East Coast guy. You know, I've been stuck on the LIE on a Friday many times. But give us a quick down and dirty about who Mike is and how did you get to where you are today?
Absolutely. So I was born and raised in North Belmore, Long Island. It's a suburb of Nassau County, the western portion of the island on the South Shore. I went to Hofstra University. I graduated Hofstra with an accounting degree. The first day that I embark on my new career, so I graduate in May, start this new job in October. You're supposed to be excited. It's the first day of the rest of your life. You're embarking on this career that you just trained for in college. And I remember going to Manhattan that day. I really didn't have, I can't say I was full of excitement. So that was kind of disappointing to me. I get to the job, meet a bunch of people. I was given a task at about 11 a.m. Next thing I know, I am kind of waking up. I had fallen asleep with my head in my hand. The kid that was training me was a little bit strange. So I got up, went to another guy that I met earlier that morning. We hit it off well. I said, "What's up, brother? You like this stuff?" He's like, "F no, I hate it." I said, "There is no way." I made this decision immediately that I'm sitting in a cubicle for the next 30, 35 years of my life, making no difference to anyone. And no one's going to know whether or not I lived or died other than close family and friends. And I just kind of went deep introspective at that point as to what I wanted to do with my life. and decided shortly thereafter that law enforcement was the avenue I wanted to pursue. More specifically, FBI was who I wanted to apply with and work for. Unfortunately, we're on a federal hiring freeze at that point. Again, this is like late 91, and that hiring freeze remained until 1997, 98. So shortly thereafter, I had met a brother of a good friend of mine. He had moved to Atlanta, told me how great it was, how young it was. They were building up for the Olympics. I said, you know what? I want to get out of New York anyway. Let me move to Atlanta, get some police experience, and when the feds start hiring again, I'll apply to them. So applied November of 92. I was hired in August 93, moved to Atlanta, and started my police career with those guys shortly thereafter.
All right. So tell me, because I'm a kid from the streets, and I moved to South Carolina for 10 years. Total culture shock. Wasn't what I thought it was whatsoever. So what was it like, a guy moving from Long Island going down to the ATL? Because the ATL is a different world, and I've hung out there, spent a lot of time in Savannah, hung out in Atlanta. But Atlanta is one of the most dangerous. It's kind of like Chicago in the South. It's one of the most dangerous areas you could be. So what was that like, coming from north, going to south, and then having that northern accent? Were you welcome?
It's the first time I heard the word Yankee. It was pretty funny. I moved down, and as far as personal life, it's a very cosmopolitan city. So even though you're in the deep South, it's not like you're in the middle of, Redneckville, so to speak. I was definitely welcomed, but again, hearing this term Yankee, I was taken aback. Like, you guys know the Civil War ended quite a while ago, right? But it was a great city. I loved it. In terms of my professional career, it was an education. I will tell you about the first night out of the academy. So we finish up mid-April, and say I finished the academy on a Monday. Next day, Tuesday, I'm going into field training. Now, at the time, Atlanta is the most violent city in America. I was assigned to Zone 3, which is the most violent part of Atlanta. In fact, the nickname for where I worked was called Little Vietnam. So I'm working my first night out of the academy's a midnight tour. We work at 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. chart. My FTO and I, within the first hour, so I start at 11, he drives me over to my first homicide scene at midnight. It wasn't our call, but he brought me over, wanted to expose me to as much as possible. And it's actually a crazy story. The deceased, or the decedent, was a Atlanta fire captain, Atlanta Fire Department captain. He was on suspension at the time. There was allegations of him and younger girls, and I guess he was being investigated. I guess they were confirmed after what happened that night. But he goes and picks up a prostitute. She's a 16-year-old prostitute. Decides he wants to smoke crack with her. Pulls up to the local dope boy on the corner. The dope boy looks in the car, and who does he see? Unfortunately for this gentleman, it's his 16-year-old cousin. Pulls out a gun, puts one on his head, done. So within an hour, see my first homicide scene. Doesn't end there. At about 4 a.m., my FTO decided he needed to take a little nap. We worked 5 and 2, so 5 days on, 2 days off, 8-hour tours. We weren't compensated well, so we all had to work extra jobs. So most guys at minimum were working 60-hour weeks. Most guys are probably closer to 80. So a lot of these midnight guys would be exhausted. So we pull into what was Atlanta Fulton County Stadium parking lot at the time. It's where the Braves played, right across the street from what became Olympic Field and Turner Field, and I'm not sure what it is now. He reclines his seat, goes to sleep. I am sitting here, my head in a swivel, just looking around like, I can't believe this guy's sleeping. Just due to where we were. But shortly thereafter, we get a 50-4 given to us by dispatcher, which is person shot, ambulance en route. Before I could say his name, he inclines his seat, puts car in drive, punches the gas, grabs a mic, copies the call. I was like, holy crap, I'm with Superman. And we proceed to our call. When we got there, we saw a gentleman laying in the street on his back, face up. He had been shot. It had been raining a little bit that night. There was smoke kind of coming off his body. And I was always, I don't know how many homicide scenes I've been to, but I was always taken back by the fact that I would look at them and say to myself, man, this guy was living his life a few minutes ago, and now he's gone forever. And that was my introduction. There was another classmate of mine who was being trained by the guy whose sector was next to us. So we were together. I looked at him. I'm like, Sam, what the hell did we get ourselves into? And it only got crazier from that point on. It was like nothing I ever could have predicted, but I loved it. I love the action.
Now, again, and we're going to be talking about two separate things. One of them really affected my life was September 11th. And I'm sure, and we'll get into that because you were back up north at that time, right?
No, I actually came back in 03.
Okay.
So I was 93 to 03 in Atlanta, and then 03 to 2022 in Suffolk County, New York.
All right. So then there's a different dynamic because you were in Atlanta during the Olympic bombing.
Yes.
And then you're in Atlanta and not even someplace close to home. Now we're being attacked, and you're there and you're not here. So, and I know we're skipping around everywhere, but you know, like for me, 9/11 saved my life. It changed my life. But I was not here. I was in South Carolina, and I was getting ready. I was getting ready to be deployed after that. So, what was it like the morning of the Olympic bombing, and then after on 9/11? Because you were in Atlanta for both of these things.
Correct. So, as far as the Atlanta bombing, at the time, I was actually assigned to my precinct. So we were working 12-hour tours, 7A to 7P, 6 days on, 1 day off. And my Olympics was horrible. I was so busy. I was probably handling 35 calls. The Olympic Stadium was actually in my sector, and I just didn't stop from dawn to dusk. So in awaking the day after the bombing, I remember my alarm went off, and you could hear the tone in the radio announcer's voice. You know, something bad had happened the night before. So I'm listening, and then he describes what had happened. And I had a bunch of coworkers that were at that park the night before, Centennial Olympic Park. So, you know, first off, I was super worried. I had no idea who had gotten hurt or killed. And then I found out there was, I believe it was one civilian who was killed. You know, it was just crazy kind of going into work and finding out what had happened. And, you know, thankfully, none of my coworkers were hurt or injured. But in speaking to them later that day, you know, I got the full breadth of what had happened. And, you know, it was just very, very sad story. You know, I felt so bad for the people who were injured, and was also thankful that my coworkers were not. So that had kind of faded from public view fairly quickly. And to 9/11, what was crazy about 9/11 was my ex-wife and I had flown back from New York on the night of the 10th. There were bad thunderstorms, so our flight was delayed till about 12:30. We ended up getting home in Atlanta about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I awoke to my phone just ringing. So picked it up. It was my father. My father was actually retired FDNY. Prior to him retiring, he was a chief's aide. So he drove the chief of the fire department. He was actually down at World Trade Center at the first bombing in 93, literally in the garage with the chief. And had he not retired a few years before, he would have been down there as well. Ray Downey, one of the chiefs that had perished in 9/11, was driven by my father. He knew him well. And I actually had played ice hockey at Hofstra with Ray Downey Jr., Ray's son. So I knew Ray pretty well at the time. And, you know, knew a few firemen that had perished. You know, that was just heartbreaking. I remember when the buildings fell, I looked at my ex-wife and I said, you know how many cops and firemen just died? And obviously the numbers were just tremendous. No one could have ever predicted, but
343 perished that day.
343 was the number.
And up to now over 10,000 people that were on the pile have either come up with cancer or died because of cancer.
Yeah, that's one of the craziest things about it. I remember I had turned out of a certain firehouse in Dix Hills when I was with Suffolk County, And I was talking to one of the firemen, volunteer firemen, who was a retired NYPD officer. And I looked at him. Someone had just perished as a result of 9/11 related cancer. And I said, you know how many people are going to die as a result of 9/11, then died on 9/11? And he gave me the weirdest look. And as cops, you're just professional observers. And you know the most subtle change, notice a change in someone. And later on that day, I went up to a really good friend of mine, and I told him what had happened in that interaction. And he's like, oh, you don't know, do you? And the gentleman that I was speaking to had contracted 9/11 related cancer, very rare. And he had perished about, I think, less than a year later. And it was just heartbreaking. To add to that, one of my Suffolk County Academy mates, Craig Capolino, I love this kid, but he had contracted 9/11 related cancer as well. He perished, I think, January 2013. And one of our conversations prior to Craig passing away was so powerful to me. Craig he never shied away from the subject. You know, we talk about his mortality. We talked about the fact that it was terminal. But Craig said to me one day, Mike, I never ask why me. He's like, who the fuck am I that it shouldn't be me? And I started tearing up. And I'm like, Cap, that is so powerful that you have that outlook. And I'm like, it's something we all should have. But, you know, brother, I mean, your unselfishness, like I was just blown away at the way he was looking at things, and kind of changed my perspective on life in some respects. Like, why shouldn't bad things happen to me as well? You know, I'm just a human being going through this life. And as we know, it ebbs and flows. And it was such a powerful statement that he made to me. And it's always stuck with me.
Yeah. I'm looking for something that, when I wrote my first book, which is the one I sent you today, I reached out to, if guys, I'm a little bit older than most of you guys, but Christopher Reeve was Superman, and I love Christopher Reeve. And I reached out to his wife, and I said, I would love to use your husband's quote as my opening quote in my book. And it talks about veterans, and for me, it references veterans and first responders, and it says, I think a hero is an ordinary individual who finds the strength to persevere and endure in spite of overwhelming obstacles. And that was by Mr. Christopher Reeve. And for me, my book is called A Hero's Journey. But in the book, first thing I write in the book, that I'm no hero, that the heroes to me are the ones that were running into the buildings while everybody else was running away. That's being a hero. That's heroism. And if you would ask anybody up in heaven, if you asked them, are you a hero? They would say, no, I was just doing my job.
Exactly.
So for me, you know, I that's why I said I love my veterans and my first responders. Whether you're EMT, whether you're dispatch, whatever you do, if you're willing to put your gun belt on and protect somebody you don't even know while leaving your family home, that's a hero in my book. So, Mike, I just want to say I love you and I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you very much. And I agree with everything you've said. Anyone that puts their life on the line for a cause and is willing to give their life for a cause bigger than themselves, to me, has a special place in my heart. And again, EMTs, nurses, doctors, everyone's a hero. Everyone's a warrior in that respect. But, you know, vets and firemen and cops and COs that are willing to die for the cause, so to speak. And especially when most people or many people don't appreciate it, they will always have a special place in my heart.
All right. So now it's 2003. Why didn't you just stay in the ATL? Prices are, because this is something I get asked a lot. Well, why didn't you stay in South Carolina? For me, prices were cheaper, houses were cheaper, blah, blah, blah. Why did Mike move back to the East Coast?
It's a great question. I actually struggled with it when I first came back. 6 months after coming back, I actually called my old major because I was kind of slotted for a canine position. And I said, is that still available? I was so bored with Suffolk County. It was nothing like Atlanta. And unfortunately, the SOPs had changed. So we had 3 continuous years without a break in service to go to a specialized unit. And I left, and that was a break. So I mainly came back for my family. I also, Suffolk County was pretty much the best compensated police force in the nation. So we definitely did well, but the housing prices from '01 to '03 had gone up $200,000. So the house that I could have had in '01 for $350 was now $550. And I thought my quality of life was going to be a little bit better. You know, everything happens for a reason, and I'm glad it worked out the way it did because I'm here. But yeah, I definitely had some points of regret. One of the big ones was I had started a police fire hockey team in Atlanta, and it became really big. We had about a $40,000 a year budget. We had actually hosted the FDNY in April of '02, and it was one of the best weekends of my life, just showing those guys a great time. We raised $25,000 for the Widows of Children's Fund. So that was one thing that I really had a hard time leaving was my hockey team. But everything happens for a reason. It was a great police department. In retrospect, I'm glad I did go. Just landed me where I am here. And as far as I'm concerned, everything in your life is meant to unfold as it did.
Okay, so I want to bring this up because I made a post yesterday, and a lot of people got mad at me and pissed off at me and cursing me out. And the only reason I'm asking this because you left New York pre 9/11.
Yep.
You moved back post 9/11. It's two different worlds. But I say that yesterday I said that we are due for another 9/11 in this country. But we need another 9/12 because 9/12 there was no African American, there was no Italian American, it was just Americans.
Yes.
And we sold out of flags in the first hour. People were buying people coffee, people were taking care of each other. So I think we need another 9/12 in this country. And I don't care what political, we need to just become one nation again, one nation under God again, where there's no red, there's no blue, it's just red, white, and blue. What are your thoughts?
I agree. Obviously 9/11 was horrific, devastating, one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. And then, yeah, you go to the beauty of 9/12 and for the, unfortunately, short time after that where we were one. I don't know if you remember, but you would see fire engines coming back in the city and people applauding, just lines of people. I was on a motorcycle squad in Atlanta. So at that point, we were assigned to the airport, even though it was closed for probably about the next week. But, it was crazy. You were getting so many people coming up and thanking you and shaking your hand. And, they were so appreciative. And it was just, very heartwarming. And, your heart's broken, but you're kind of seeing the beauty of humanity at that point.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, well, not funny thing, but I was still in South Carolina. My wife was here. She wasn't my wife at that time, but she said for that couple days after 9/11, like I live, actually, if I go stand on my front porch, I actually stand in the shadows where the Twin Towers once stood. I'm 10 minutes from Manhattan. So, we have Teterboro Airport, Newark Airport, we have JFK, and for like a couple of days, there was no planes. It was just silence. And when you're used to hearing planes every 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then there's nothing but silence, it's a big mind fuck. I don't know where I was going with that, but like for me, if I go to Dunkin' Donuts, and if there's a veteran, if somebody in uniform, a fireman, first responder, like we went to, I think we're at Chick-fil-A, and there was a soldier with his family. I paid for their food. I'm like, bro, I got you. I thank you so much for what you do. And now it seems like, if like I got so many friends that are police officers, and I ask them, would you become a police officer if you had a chance to do it all over again? He's like, in today's time? Hell no. They don't let me do my job.
Yeah.
So talk about coming back in a post 9/11 world to becoming law enforcement in the New York City area.
I mean, really, I can't say there was huge changes. You got this outpouring of love right after 9/11, and then things kind of went back to normal shortly thereafter. At the time, you really didn't feel this constrictiveness that you do now. Video wasn't as widespread. This anti-police sentiment is really, to me, only taken hold since 2020. We went through COVID, and we were looked at as heroes, and then shortly thereafter, George Floyd happened, and the world just turned upside down from that point on. And then since that point, especially, I blame our politicians mostly. They just jump on the bandwagon. Their rhetoric affects so many people, and it affects the way people's perspectives towards law enforcement are aimed. It's you can. It just kind of breaks your heart, and you see these guys and girls doing a job, and we take these jobs for noble means. We want to help people. There's no collective conspiracy to want to take any class of people down. We're not looking to do that. We're in these neighborhoods a lot of times that are not our own. I was in the worst part of the land. I didn't live in that neighborhood, but I would have given my life for strangers. I almost did a few times. So people need to realize that this is a noble profession. And if you continue on the track we're on, eventually you're not going to get people who are applying to become police officers, and don't look at that after the fact, especially with these defund the police personnel and organizations. Don't be shocked when these people are not applying for these jobs anymore, and these neighborhoods are not getting protected because they're so short-handed. You look out west now, I think like Oregon has such a shortage that it takes, like, if they come, an hour and a half for calls to be answered. There's a reckoning that's going to occur, and it's happening.
And for me in New York, like I said, because I'm so close to New York, once Cuomo and this other guy started, okay, you arrest me at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, I'm back on the street. And I may pay a fine, but I'm not going to jail. So I have friends that are New Jersey State Police troopers, and they're like, listen, if somebody blows by me doing 85, I'm not going to pull them over. If you're doing over 100, maybe. But other than that, I'm just going to sit in my car, because I know if I give them a ticket, nothing's going to happen. If anybody does anything wrong, they're not going to jail. So why am I even going to get involved? I'm just going to, because I'm going to be the bad guy. So I have a lot of police officers like, you know what? If they're not going to put him in jail, what's the sense of wasting paper?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you're getting guys who are not being proactive anymore, because just as you said, why? You're just asking for trouble. And there was another. So going back to what you were saying now with the no bail laws, when they changed, I think it was in 2017, that was mind blowing to many of us, because we really didn't realize what was coming down the pike there. And I remember one incident where I caught a guy, he was wanted for 3 burglaries. So detective squad would process all of our felony cases. So brought him back to the detective squad. Before I was done with my statement, this guy was done getting processed, and he's walking out of the precinct. I look at the detective, I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, no bail laws. I'm done with my paperwork. He's gone. I'm like, 3 burgs, and this guy's released. He's like, nonviolent crime. And I was blown away. And, I just said to him, like, Chuck, guys are just going to stop doing their jobs. They're going to get so sick of seeing this. Disgusting to me.
Yeah. So take us to, because like I said, when I've interviewed my law enforcement officers, even veterans that had, whether they got blown up, whether they got injured on the job, or whether it was a police involved shooting, a lot of podcasters, they'll ask you about what happened that day. But for me, what was Mike like the day before the shooting? What was Mike like the day of the shooting? And what was Mike like the day after the shooting? Because that's 3 different aspects in your life in a 3-day period.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just get stuck up on what happened during that day, but they don't talk about what you were like before and then how what you were like afterwards. So if you wouldn't mind taking us through those 3 days.
The 3 days involving what?
Yeah, you're shooting. You were involved in a police involved shooting, weren't you?
Well, I had been shot at one night, but we couldn't return fire. So what happened was my partner and I were dispatched to a call. At the time, I was in Atlanta, and we had early cars and late cars. So they didn't want the entirety of the cars kind of off the street at any one time. So they would call the odd number cars a half hour earlier than the late cars. So this particular night, early cars get called. My partner and I get dispatched to another sector where the car was called in. It was involving a possible shooting. I think it was a fight, weapon involved, but at the time, no shooting had occurred. So we go over there, and as we're pulling up, now unbeknownst to us, what had happened was this girl's boyfriend had gotten into a fight with her brother. The boyfriend was a crackhead. So, you know how rational they are. After he gets beat by the brother, he goes and says goes back to his apartment, saying he's going to fetch his gun. Well, he does. So he comes back, and as myself and my partner are rolling up to the building, the side of the building is here. Here's the front. Here's the back. So we could see him firing into the apartment in the front door. He then comes around the building, sees us, turns around and starts shooting at us. And what's crazy is we were told about the physiological effects of extreme stressful situations on the human body, and one of which is you get tunnel vision. Another which is your auditory response goes to almost nothing. Yeah. So this guy was about 25 yards from us shooting a .357 Magnum. I could not hear the shots. I just saw the muzzle flashes. This is about 10:30 at night. And again, the tunnel vision was spot on because all I saw was this guy shooting. So my partner and I went to engage him. Unfortunately, we did notice there were a few people in the back of him, and it was not clear to engage. We got in a foot pursuit. We lost him. About 5 minutes later, we get a call about someone breaking into an apartment. We put a help call in, so the troops are around. First two guys get there. We go into this apartment. All four of us walk up the stairs. Three of the guys make a right turn. I open this door. I see a 2-year-old kid sitting up in a bed. This is about 11:15. Wide awake. I'm like, something's not right. I go, what's up, buddy? Anyone else here? He shakes his head, yes. I said, where? And he points under his crib. So I get the other guy's attention. I bring him back. I point under the crib, flip the lights, flip the crib. There's the guy. We get him cuffed, get him out of there. The father comes in of the child. And, I was just praising him. What a great job he did. You're such a brave kid. I go, did he have anything on with him? He's like, yeah. I said, where is it? So he points under the mattress. So this is a mattress where the kid was sleeping. Pull it up. There's a .357. I pop it open, reloaded. So he's ready to roll. That guy got 2 years to serve for shooting at police and for the additional shooting into the apartment. So, fortunately or unfortunately, we didn't engage. But to get to you were speaking about your friend that had gotten in the fatal shooting. I think I had conditioned myself for years in case it did happen that, I would kind of just picture it in my mind, just do meditations of things and how it would be and how it would react afterwards. And I cannot say for sure because I was never in a situation where I had to take someone's life. But I always thought that I would be fine if someone was trying to take my life and I took theirs, no problem. If there was a bad shooting, another story. That night, had we engaged him and I didn't see someone behind him and accidentally killed someone, and it was a person, that would change the dynamics of the way I felt about it big time. But again, I can't say for sure because I was never in it, and I can't put myself in that position.
Okay, so then you've done over 30 years. When did you start notice, or because a lot of people, like my wife, didn't realize what PTSD was like until we went to go see the movie American Sniper with my friend Chris Kyle. And I wear a hat in honor of Chris every day. And I told his wife I'll always wear a hat in honor of Chris. That's the only reason I wear a hat is because of Chris. But when he's sitting there watching the TV and the TV's not on, and he's seeing something but it's not on, that's when my wife looked over at me and she's like, I get it. I can see it now. I see why. So when did you start noticing, or if you did notice, there was struggling with some post-traumatic stress? Was it while you were still on the job, or was it afterwards?
No, I never really experienced any PTSD related symptoms on the job. What happened with me was I got hurt September 22nd of 2020. I was helping a woman up the stairs, large woman, she's about 500 pounds. And as we crested the top stair, I could see her right foot start sliding back. So I bent down, crouched down, and just kind of stood up really quick, kind of blasted her up the stairs so we didn't each fall down the stairs. And I herniated 4 discs in my back. So tried conservative treatments for about 6 months, and I had to get a back surgery in April of 21. I healed from that, went back to work about 6 months later. My neurosurgeon, prior to the first surgery, there were several problems going on, and he said that we were going to try to correct what we could with the first one, which is a laminectomy, but I was probably going to need a spinal fusion down the line, and we were going to try to avoid it for now. I went back to work, light duty on the desk, and I could not sit at a desk, kind of bent over, typing or writing. So I went back out, received a spinal fusion about 6 months later. And at that point, I was 54 years old. They medically retired me in October of 22. So that was 2 years now that I was not allowed to work, was not allowed to volunteer, was not allowed to go to the gym. I'm a very purpose-driven individual, and I had no purpose at that point. There's a unit that follows guys around when they're line of duty injury, and they'll videotape you. So they can they'll attempt to videotape you getting in a car. If you do it too smoothly, hey, here's evidence that he's not hurt. Although I have, verifiable MRIs, 2 back surgeries. It's not like talking about having ringing in my ears, that it's just a subjective thing. I have, all this medical paperwork confirming that everything is valid. So once I was retired, I still had to go through my workers' comp case. That took another year. Wasn't allowed to volunteer, nothing. The Guide Dog Foundation of America, which trains guide dogs for blind people, was about a mile down the block from my house. I asked to volunteer there. Even just sitting at a desk reading people, just give me something to do. They wouldn't let me. So, I'm now starting to get a little bit of maybe depression, coupled with the fact that now I'm no longer a part of this thing I was for 30 years. I'm no longer this thing I was for 30 years. I'm no longer part of this brotherhood. And the camaraderie was the thing I love most about the job. I never took promotional tests because I didn't want the dynamics of the job to change. So now you're kind of out of sight, out of mind. You're not talking to the guys every day. So, you start getting these feelings. And I was aware that I wasn't feeling myself. I just wasn't sure what it was. That leads me to watching a Sean Ryan podcast. This is probably about a year and a half ago now. Sean is a retired Navy SEAL, ex-CIA military contractor. He's got a very popular podcast on YouTube. I used to watch a lot of his shows. And during the course of his shows, he interviews a lot of special forces guys, a lot of SEALs. And all these men are coming back broken from war, whether it be, PTSD, depression issues, substance abuse issues, TBIs, runs the gamut. But they're speaking about getting healed by these plant-based medicines. So I'm becoming aware of them, but I'm still not thinking it's applicable to me. And then I watched an interview that he did with a former Navy SEAL Team 6 member named Eddie Penny. And Eddie is recounting the story of the Extortion 17 incident in which a Chinook went down. And in addition to all the flight personnel, 17 SEALs were killed. Yep. One of which was Eddie's best friend. And he's speaking about escorting his best friend's body back to his hometown. And Eddie is visibly upset, rightly so. And someday I will thank him in person or on the phone for what he did. He's got no idea. But as he's recounting the story, all I could think about was an incident I had a few years before of a 2-year-old found floating in a pool. And it just came to the surface. And I just started crying like a baby. And my first reaction as this is going on is to look inside my house and make sure my wife is not back from food shopping, because I was so embarrassed. Because we're men, we're warriors. We're not in touch with our feelings. Feeling is a sign of weakness. Yeah. And, I was raised by a father who was pretty stern, and that was his credo as well. And, I've since changed my life and realized it's actually a sign of strength, not weakness. But at that point, it was. So as I'm crying and thinking about this call, I just realized, I have PTSD. And now I'm thinking about all these other clothes now start popping up.
Mhm.
You know, we call it compartmentalizing it. We bury these calls and we lock them in this box so neatly. It's like this fancy psychological term, and they're never going to reappear again. No, we need to lose that term, number one, from our vernacular. We bury stuff. We just cannot absorb all of the pain that we see, whether it's ours or other people's that we're experiencing. We just can't absorb it. So you callous up. And before you know it, you become so callous, you're not feeling anything. And, you know, you're becoming a man that you don't even realize has changed so much, but you're not who you used to be. And, you know, we evolve as people anyway, naturally, but, you know, this version of yourself is not one that you want. So, again, and watching Eddie and thinking about things and hearing about his journey as well with plant-based medicines, I realized that it was something I had to do. I knew I needed help. I didn't think traditional therapy was going to do it for me. I didn't think I was going to go and speak to some guy or girl behind a desk who's never had any experience with this, telling what I've done, what I've seen, and they're going to be able to help me. So I was not aware that these treatments were available in the U.S. And I told my wife, I want to go to Peru. I want to go to South America. It was just calling me. I knew that I needed help, and whatever it was going to do to me was going to be advantageous. So we moved to Florida this past December, during the course of which my wife was doing some research, and she had found a center called Soul Quest Ayahuasca Church in Orlando. And we had made plans, and we sat this past March for our first ayahuasca journey, and it changed my life.
All right, so let's go back a little bit because I want to go and try to go in order.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows my story. I attempted suicide Labor Day 2012 when they told me, "Well, you're no longer Sergeant Kaufman." But wait, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, hold on." I got thrown out of the military for being an addict. I get back in, and now I do 23 years to be the ultimate soldier. I lose my sight, and you're telling me you can't see, you can't shoot, we don't need you anymore. Well, if I'm not Sergeant Kaufman, who am I? You know, because
Exactly.
we get so wrapped up in what we do that we don't create a who we are. And I find a lot of veterans and first responders, you know, once we hang up that gun belt for the last time, and well, I can only speak for military, but I think we run neck and neck pretty much. Once you step off base, the military doesn't give a shit about you. Your phone stops ringing. You don't have a mission anymore, like you said. And either you end, a lot of us end up at the bottom of a bottle, at the end of a barrel. So, how important do you think it is for somebody, if they're going to get on the force or going to join the military? If somebody would have said to me, "Rich, you have a shelf life. Prepare for getting out. You're not forever going to be young, dumb, and full of cum. You're going to be an old man. You're going to get hurt. You're no longer going to be wearing that uniform. Start making plans for afterwards." Because I think if somebody would say that when I'm first joining the military, to start planning ahead, to thinking, okay, I'm not always going to have this uniform. Because what happens when you don't have the uniform? So is that something you went through when you were no longer the rank that you were, and you were no longer, an active member of the police department?
Absolutely, 100%. And I had heard about other guys going through it prior to retiring. I can't say I paid too much mind to it. Additionally, when I got out, I thought it was time. You know, I was not fighting it. I was at peace with it. It was what it was. Let me put it that way. And I was not expecting the feelings to hit me like they did. You know, I didn't realize how much I would miss it, to be honest with you. Maybe not a lot of the day-to-day BS, but, you know, I loved hanging with the guys and girls. Again, the brotherhood and the camaraderie was the thing that I took from this job that I loved the most, and it was no longer there. And life goes on. When you're not a part of it anymore, you know, guys and girls are doing their thing. That phone is not ringing like it used to. And also additionally, like, you train. You know, I would fight, I would lift, shoot. you just make yourself hard to kill, and you love doing these things, and you have an outlet for what you're doing. And it's not necessarily you going around fighting people every day or anything like that, but the outlet's no longer there. Where else? I love the job. I love the adrenaline rush. To me, there's nothing like chasing another man, especially in this case, evil men. You're not going to get that anywhere else. Where are you getting that adrenaline rush? So that's gone as well. So yeah, I had to come to peace with that. It was no longer a part of me. I was no longer a part of that. It was that phase of my life was closed.
Right, so I want to talk about something else, because if a person retires or if a person does their 4 years and they get out and they're okay physically and mentally, that's one thing. But for me, one day I'm 173 pounds, I'm shredded, I'm bodybuilding, and I'm powerlifting, and I'm in MMA. The next day I'm blind and I can't even wipe my own ass or make my own food. And it's the difference when all of a sudden you're broken. And even though like the money wasn't an issue, because I knew I was going to retire, I was going to get retirement. But when I can no longer do the things that I used to do, learning to have a new normal, that's a big mind fuck, especially if you're married and with kids. And I was taking the kids to school one day, going food shopping, then I can't drive for 18 months. I'm blind. It's a whole different mindset. So what is it like being physically broken, knowing that I have a new normal that I have to get used to?
It's not good. Not that you consider yourself immortal, but you realize that you're just like everyone else. Age is going to catch up to you. You are mortal. There's nothing you can do to prevent it. You could train your whole life and try to stave it off and do what you're doing as much as possible. But in the end, time gets everyone. And, you need to reconcile yourself to that fact. I think if I had the ability to go into something, a new career, find a path right after retiring, things would have been different for me. And I was thinking about it yesterday. I don't know if I ever would have reconciled this PTSD fact had I gone into something else, because I think that would have been another avenue to kind of take my mind off it, focus my attention on that. And potentially maybe the PTSD kind of would have burned itself off. I can't really say. That was not going to be the case in the road that was shown to me. So.
Okay, now let me ask you another question, because this stat shocks a lot of people. And like I said, I've done over 1,350 interviews, and I'm so grateful that we get to hang out and talk, and I appreciate you. But something I want to talk about is the average American male in the United States dies at the age of 78.
Right.
The average first responder or veteran dies at 58.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 20-year difference. In your opinion, what's the difference?
In my opinion, it's not the post-retirement that gets them. It's what they were doing in all those years leading up to it. Like, I've always subscribed to a healthy diet. I've always tried to get my 8 hours of sleep. I've not been a big drinker. In my younger days, we would go out Friday, Saturday nights, but it's not something that I was doing alone. I've always tried to live with healthy habits. And I think that a lot of guys don't. And you throw the stress of the job on top of the fact that you're not taking care of your body. And, it's got to have a disastrous effect. Additionally, as we're speaking about, I think guys retire and they don't have, or girls and guys have retired, they don't have any purpose after that. And I think it slowly kind of drains the life out of you. You can't just wake up and have no purpose, nothing to do. To me, physical health is a huge part of mental health. So I'm in that gym probably 6 days a week, and I don't think you can have one without the other. I don't think you can be totally mentally healthy if you're not physically healthy. And I'm not saying you have to be, a bodybuilder or anything like that. You just go in and get your workout every day and subscribe to those healthy habits. Cool. You're going to have a glass of wine or something like that a night, fine. But, you're having 3, 4, 5, 6 drinks a night. listen, it's going to be disastrous in the end. You're eating horrible foods. Your body is your temple, and what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. So men and women really need to think about what they're doing. And, I think it's a combination. You need to stay busy, have a purpose, but also take care of yourself mentally as well.
Right. So now, like I said, now I want to get into the minutia of plant-based medicine. I was with GNC for over 30 years. And for me, I always knew, because I took courses in anatomy, physiology, and we have a cannabinoids, I can never say it right, cannabinoid system in the body for a reason. It's not just there because God put it there. But a lot of people don't even know that we have a cannabinoid system in our body, and that plant medicine can help a lot. But I think, like I said, ever since I watched the show on Netflix called Change Your Mind, how they were starting to use LSD in the 40s and the 50s to help soldiers coming back, and then gone. They just stopped. But now, like I said, I've had several friends. My friend Steven, my friend Lane, every year they go to Peru and they do their ayahuasca. Oh, hold on one second. Okay, you're back. So I believe that we're just touching the fringes of what plant-based medicine can do for us. But take us to your first ayahuasca experience.
Absolutely. So, as I said, it occurred in Soul Quest Ayahuasca Church in Orlando. My wife and I drove down on a Friday. So you drink Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday night. It's 3 journeys that you take. You go there Friday, you attend an orientation, you're told what to expect, just kind of the rules and customs. It's very sacred. And I consider these medicines all to be sacred. They've been around for thousands of years. They're, number one, they're not drugs. So anyone, when I'm speaking to people, I need to get this, tell them up front, it's not drugs. It's not something that's enjoyable. It's not something that's going to get you high. In fact, it's the opposite. A lot of times you're going to have profound sadness during your journeys, but these medicines take you where you need to go to heal yourself. I've spoken to people who were addicted to drugs and they thought this was going to be another drug that they take and they'd enjoy it. Far, far from it. I see no potential for abuse with any of these things, but because it's not something that someone would want to take on the regular. They're there for a purpose. To me, they were brought there by the universe or God. Otherwise, ayahuasca, for instance, it's made by using 2 vines. There are 80,000 vines in the Amazon. How did someone know to use these 2 specific vines? You can't have the effects from using one without the other. It's them in unison. How did these people first know it? To me, that's a universe or God, or whatever higher power you want to use that showed these people how to use it. But to get back to the ceremony, so the ayahuasca itself is you take these vines and you boil it down, and essentially it becomes like a liquid. It's a little bit thick. It's served to you in essentially what looks like a shot glass, and you drink. There's a bunch of ceremonial stuff that's done prior to drinking, and the ceremony is just beautiful, to be honest with you. So once you take the medicine, for me, it takes about 40 minutes or so to take effect. And my first night, it's funny, I was getting a little angry at about a 30-minute mark. I'm like, man, nothing's going to happen. This is going to be a waste. I can't believe I came here for all this. And all of a sudden the ground started moving. And I kind of went deep from there. People say that they sense a female presence. They call her Mother Ayahuasca or Mother. For my journey, it was almost as though I was looking at a big screen TV. We were outside. There was a big fire in the middle. We were sitting in alpine chairs. There was probably 35 people in this particular ceremony, and they kind of outlined the yard. Fairly dark, but I'm watching like this vivid picture on this screen, and I could see Mother in the left-hand corner, and I literally surrendered. I told her, I have tears in my eyes. I surrender to you. Please help me. I need help. Whatever you tell me to do, I will do. And I'm like, I need to get rid of this anger, this rage. I don't know what to do with it. I need to get rid of this ego. And literally everything I asked for was like at the snap of a finger was given. I could feel myself getting lighter and lighter and lighter as time went on. And at one point, my father had passed away in 2020. We had a very contentious relationship growing up. It was never good, unfortunately. And she was bringing my dad to me in my journey. And it was crazy because as she's bringing him to me, it was as though I was in Vegas and I was in front of the brightest Vegas marquee you've ever seen. And there's music in the ceremonial area, but the music in my journey was building louder and louder. And in reality, it was not. And it just built to this crescendo. And in reality, it was not. It just stopped. And in reality, it was still going on. And now I'm waiting. I'm looking down this hallway for my dad. And I finally realized he's not going to show. And I remember when you're in your journey, you kind of come in and you go in, you come out of it. You're in, you're out of it. It's not like you're solely in this psychedelic hallucination and that's it. You just come in and out. And I remember specifically throwing my hands up in the air. I'm like, coward. I knew he wouldn't show. He can't talk about his feelings. But with that, 55 years of everything between he and I was just released. It was gone. There was no more, when I thought of memories between he and I, there was no more emotional charge to those memories. And I remember her telling me, you were this thing. That fire was up here, along with everything else that came with it, that anger, that rage, that hatred. She's like, your time has passed. You are not that anymore. You don't need that fire here. She's like, the fire will still be, it's going to be down here. And if you ever need to call on it, you're still a warrior. You will always be a warrior, but you do not need it up there, along with everything else that comes with it. And it was just, Rich, I can't even tell you, like, it was just release, release, release. And at the end of it, I didn't preface the story by saying that 2 coworkers and friends had committed suicide 3 weeks before from Suffolk County PD. They killed themselves a week apart. The sergeant, the second one, killed himself in a precinct locker room 2 days before making lieutenant. I had no inkling that I was going to get into this realm, but as I'm coming out of my experience, as clearly as you and I are speaking, the universe told me, you are healed. And when I say that, I don't mean that I'm this perfect human being. We heal constantly. I'm still ever evolving. But she said, you were healed from your PTSD. She's like, your life's purpose is to go forth and heal other vets and first responders of theirs. And I literally said out loud, okay. And I accepted that. And that was it. I wasn't sure how it was going to be implemented at that point, but I knew my life's purpose from that point on was going to be just doing that.
Okay, so now let's talk about the physical aspect because if we break down the word disease, it's dis-ease. There's dis-ease in the body. And I was listening to something the other day that if there is anger, if there's depression, if there's anxiety, it actually goes to certain parts of the body and lives there and can actually cause cancer in certain areas because you start literally swallowing that stuff, all that anger, that depression, and it sits in one part of the body. And if we don't, for me, if I don't clear the wreckage of my past, if I don't forgive people, if I don't ask for forgiveness, and if I don't forgive myself, then I'm always going to have dis-ease in my body. What are your thoughts on forgiveness and letting like with your dad, you let that shit go. You're like, I can't hold on to it anymore or else it's going to eat me alive. So how important is forgiveness?
I agree with you 100%. I believe that if you're taking these things in and you're holding them and you're, under stress and you have hatred in you, it's going to manifest itself in different ways. One of them is disease. And, think about when you wake up feeling happy one day and everything's going good, as opposed to waking up one day where nothing is good, or you have this hatred in your heart, or just this weight on you. It's got to have some type of bad effect to your, obviously to your mental health, but I think to your physical health as well. And if you release things that no longer serve you, it's such a powerful, cathartic action, and it's the best thing you possibly do for yourself. Just with my dad, thinking about things in the past that you could feel yourself like tensing up, maybe breathing faster or harder, or just having an emotional reaction to him. And I no longer have that. It serves me well. There were so many examples of, when I think about things that no longer affect me like they used to. And, not only that, I remember during the ceremony, I was watching the volunteers, and their job essentially is to help us with anything we need. And I'm just looking at them as the ceremony's going on. I'm like, these people are so graceful, so loving, so empathetic, so sympathetic. And I was talking to Mother, and I was like, this is the man I want to be. I want to be like them. I go, there is strength in what they're doing. I used to always equate strength to, physical size, how much weight you could lift, how proficient you were at fighting, how good you were at shooting. Maybe there's a place for that in that realm. But in life itself, no, this true strength and feeling emotion and being empathetic towards people and wanting to help people and showing love towards people and forgiveness and, being there for them, that's true strength as a man. And you could be a warrior, you could reconcile the fact that you have love in your heart and still be, in some respects, this warrior.
All right. So let me ask you a question, because I had one of my friends, David Meltzer, on the show. He has a $20 billion company. They wrote the movie Jerry Maguire about him. And something that he said was that gratitude and anger cannot occupy the same space. So, like for me, if I get angry, actually, when I come down here, I have my challenge coins. Some were giving me, like cops and campers, some of my challenge coins. Some says your service matters. But for me, I have a list of 5 things that I keep in my wallet at all times that I'm grateful for. So if I'm feeling that way, I'm like, yeah, I'm struggling with this, but I got a beautiful wife. I got 3 beautiful children. I got a beautiful home. I got a great business. So talk to us about gratitude and anger.
Absolutely. 2 words that I live by now: gratitude and perspective. And as you said, with gratitude is waking up and thanking. It's not just to me, it's not thanking whoever your power is, God, the universe, for what you have. It is thanking them for everything it put you through. I'd gone through some family drama a few months ago, and I was speaking to a mentor of mine. And, I wasn't talking to him in a victim-y way, but he's like, listen, Morgs, he's like, you're a warrior, but you cannot be a warrior and a victim at the same time. Your mind will never reconcile that fact. So you're either a warrior or a victim. And he goes, you're a warrior. And he goes, turn everything that happens to you into an empowering thing. So in other words, I don't care what it is, and it included that drama I was going through at that point. I look at everything from a gratitude perspective of gratitude to the universe, whatever it is, whether it's the most visceral pain I've ever felt in my life. It's going to take me from where I am now. I'm going to feel it. I'm going to heal from it. I'm going to come out the other side a stronger and more resilient man. I'm going to have a healthy attitude. I'm going to help people if that's what I choose to do. Perspective is not looking at things in that negative light, woe is me. I only have bad luck. Why is this happening to me? Kind of going back to my example of my buddy Capolino, who had passed away. He said, why not me? Who am I? Wake up every day and have that perspective change. And it's funny, I tell people, how come that voice inside your head about the negative is so loud, it screams, yet that positive voice is so low? Turn that around, flip it around, flip the script, empower yourself, look at everything from a positive viewpoint. And it's hard, man. I'm not saying it's a piece of cake to do, but build slowly on it. If you're in that deep, dark depression, inspired actions create your life. Now, if you don't think you could do that at that point, when you wake up that day, have gratitude. Hey, I woke up. I'm healthy. The sun is shining. I have breakfast. I have food in my stomach. Because there are a lot of people that don't. There are a lot of people that aren't waking up healthy. There are a lot of people that aren't waking up that morning. You thank God for everything, whoever your power is, everything that you have, and you're slowly building this foundation. And from there, you'll be able to ascend. But you must look at things in a positive light. Look and think at how beautiful life is. Yeah, we're all put into profound pain sometimes. But you know what? Like, I love Rocky's speech in Rocky Balboa where he's talking to his son about life. Nothing but life. Nothing hitting hard as life. And you can make the decision to sit down on your ass or get back up and face it. As long as you take those small incremental steps forward, you're never going to quit. And that is the key to life.
And one thing I love that you just said was perspective. And the reason why I wanted to bring it up, and I've mentioned this many times on my show, about 2 years ago, it was wintertime, there was snow and it was cold, and I had to take the garbage to the front, and the garbage fell over, and I'm mad, and I'm kicking the garbage can, and I pick all the garbage up and I put it out front, and I look and I see my house decorated for Christmas, and I'm going, wait a minute, I get to take out my garbage. Because 3 miles away from the house where I'm living now is the crack house that I was in, where I was eating dog food and eating out of garbage cans. But if I didn't have that perspective, if I didn't have that awakening moment, be like, I'm grateful I get to take the garbage out of my own house. And I think once we change our have tos to get tos, it's a big difference. But I think we also need to, like, when I'm going on a cruise again in 2 months, just got back from a cruise, got back from a vacation. When I go out to a nice restaurant, I order the steak and lobster on purpose to remind me you're no longer that guy eating dog food. You're no longer that guy living in the crack house. You deserve better. So it's all a matter of perspective, correct?
Absolutely. 100%. The perspective that you live your life with is going to dictate how your life is lived. And in that realm, I had taken some training this past April with GBRS Group. It's a company owned by former Navy SEALs, one of which is DJ Shipley. And DJ and I got into a very deep discussion about our individual journeys. DJ had used Ibogaine to heal himself from his various PTSDs. But we got a deep discussion, and we were not happy at the time with the men we were. You know, he was talking about kind of going off on the quickly off the handle with his kids and his wife, and he didn't mean to, but he couldn't control himself. And I was like, listen, I'll say a cross word to my wife here and there. And first thing I'm like, what are you doing? My wife's the best. I love my wife more than anything, but it's almost uncontrollable. You know what's going on, but you still can't stop it. And, you know, as I said to you before, I was talking to DJ. I'm like, listen, you're a tier 1 warrior, one of the toughest guys in the world. But number one, you're a human first. Whatever our title is, we're human beings. And again, we callous up to not absorb this pain. And we do it so much, we feel nothing. We're human beings, DJ was supposed to feel. And I go, I feel now, and I love it. You know, I did a Facebook Live after my first ayahuasca journey, and I cried on Facebook, and I never would have been able to do that prior to, and I would have been so embarrassed had I done so, but I was so proud of myself. And I told DJ, I'm proud of the man I am now. And DJ said the same thing to me. And, you know, we live our lives with gratitude now, especially, you know, it's amazing that he and I are both alive after, especially him, but I'm not comparing myself to him in any respect. But, you know, the stuff that we've gone through is amazing. And to now come out the other side with love in our hearts and appreciate good friends, good family, appreciate everything. I appreciate, you know, I look up at a sunset, a sunrise, a beautiful moon, you know, birds chirp. Like, I try to appreciate every little thing in life, because life is beautiful if you look around. And sometimes you're not able to realize that, or you're not in that mind state or mindset to realize that, but that's where you need to be.
Okay, now this is a teaching podcast, so one of the last questions is, if somebody is struggling with their mental health, what would be your top 3 pieces of advice to help them start to find some peace?
Well, I guess as we were just talking about, I would tell them to kind of train their mind to, every time a negative thought pops in, and I'll tell them before, think about things that make you happy and kind of file those thoughts away. Now, when that negativity pops in your head, bam, switch that out with one of those positive thoughts, because thoughts create your reality. And yeah, it may sound like a little bit of flower child stuff at first, but you know what? You start doing it and it has an effect on you. So you have that gratitude approach. You have that perspective approach where you realize that this is how you need to look at things and appreciate everything that you go through, and don't look at it as a woe is me. Additionally, I tell people, if you think, listen, we all need help at some points. And if you think that traditional counseling is going to do it for you, cognitive therapy is going to do it for you, go that route. If you think it's going to be plant-based medicines, go that route. If you want to seek peer counseling, go that route. But no one is coming to save you. You need to get up off your ass, raise your hand. There's plenty of us, when you ask for help, that are there for you. But no one is walking in your house, throwing you over our shoulder, taking you out and getting you help. I had an opioid problem myself going back to 2012. I was actually in rehab when that Labor Day of 2012, and you said you attempted suicide.
Yeah.
I had come to the realization I needed help and asked for it and was ready to receive it. Sometimes until you hit that rock bottom, you're not willing or you're unable to receive it. But get the help you need, because it is out there. It is incumbent upon you, though, to ask for it, because no one knows what's going inside your head. And to that end, also, pay attention to your friends, family, whatever, who could be going through it. If I'm talking to one of my buddies, I'm like, "What's up, brother? How you doing?" He's like, "I'm like, that man is not all right." Go and talk to him further. Do not think you're prying. Do not be intimidated into asking him. If you have to ask this question, are you thinking about taking your life? Ask him that question, because potentially he is. If you're thinking it, there's a reason why. It didn't just pop in your head. And you could potentially save that man or woman's life by asking that one question. And they will love you for it. They will not think you're prying. I promise you that.
And, I do that all the time. And I'll be like, "Hey, bro, how you doing?" And they'll be like, "I'm all right." And then I'm like, "All right, how are you really doing?"
Exactly.
And then they're like, "All right, you got me."
Yeah.
And I think we would save so many lives if I would just go on Instagram and say, "Hey, Mike, how you doing, brother? How you feeling? How's everything? How's the family?" And just reach out to, because I think for me, and I get a lot of pushback. I see all these people doing 22 push-ups a day. It's bullshit. Why don't you text 22 people a day? Why don't you call 22 people a day? That's going to save lives. Doing push-ups is great, getting awareness. But if I just reach out and say, "Mr. Morgan, what's up, dude? How are you doing today?" You might have been on the edge, but since I reached out, you've been like, "Wow, somebody actually cares about me." And it doesn't take long. It doesn't take long to say, "Hey, brother, just thinking about you. Just want to let you know you're loved and appreciated." Right?
Yep. 100% correct. And additionally, I've had 3 cases now. I only pay attention to my followers on Instagram because, to me, they are part of a team that can help get people treatment. And I've had 3 friends who have followed my account turn other first responders and vets onto me, saying, "Look at this guy's message, maybe reach out to him." And they did. And I put them on the path to healing. Had their friend I reached out, one of them told me he was suicidal within the past 2 weeks, changed his life around. And that, to me, is the most powerful thing. It's not just me. It's not just you who have experience in this field. Anyone who knows someone going through it can turn around and refer them to someone that can get them help. And, and don't be afraid about prying. You're not prying. You care about this loved one. You want to get them help. It is so hard for us as men. I think the stigma is getting released slowly, but it's so hard for us to turn around and ask for help. We're just taught that is weakness, and it's not.
Yeah. And I tell all my friends, I'm like, "Listen, I would rather hear your bullshit than your eulogy."
Exactly.
So hit me up anytime.
Exactly.
We could go out for coffee, whatever. But so what's going on in the world of Mike Morgan? You got anything special coming up? How do we find you? How do we support the mission?
Absolutely. So most things kind of springboard off of my Instagram, which is team, TEAM, _morgs, MORGS_INC. So anything I'm doing, I'm going to announce there. I actually have a live I'm doing tonight at 7:30 Eastern with Taylor Kavanaugh. He's a ex-SEAL, and he also served in the French Foreign Legion. He's got one of the most powerful redemption stories I've ever heard. I don't know if you're familiar with Taylor yourself.
No, I'm going to tune in because that's an interesting combination.
Oh, it's mind blowing. I actually became aware of Taylor about a year ago. He started a YouTube channel, and he just gets so vulnerable. He'll tell you exactly what he did. Everything was, self-initiated. His demise in the SEALs, unfortunately, he got into a street fight. Once he was on probation for that, he decided at a concert he wanted to take a golf cart for a ride. He got chased by the police, and he lost his trident as a result. I cannot even imagine the profound loss that you would have losing your trident. I mean, that is your identity, that you put your heart and soul into that job. He sat with a shotgun, sawed-off shotgun, for 3 days in his truck. He was going to kill himself. Woke up one morning, said, fuck that. Don't be a pussy, man up. Sold everything he had, got a ticket to France, walked over, knocked on the door of the French Foreign Legion, signed up, and served 5 years in the French Foreign Legion. He knew he had to get his head right. He went so far above getting his head right. He began reading about philosophy and just so many things, and just entered that realm of higher consciousness. And now he's actually my mindset coach. I hired him because his story was so powerful to me. And I had my first live last week with another SEAL named Zach Ferguson. It was just a phenomenal interview going through his story, and we received so much positive feedback from it that I asked Taylor to do it, and now I'm going to reach out to a bunch of different people. I want to start doing that. Additionally, I want to enter the public speaking realm. I want to speak to first responders and vets. I want to affect as many people as I can. I am willing to bare my soul to help these men and women. I want to show them everything that I'm telling you about gratitude, perspective, emotion. I want to show them the mistakes I've made in life, the fact that you can recover from all of them, become stronger on the other end, come out, help people. It's just my message. The universe told me you're a vessel for this, and I gladly accepted. Additionally, I had a ayahuasca retreat with a healing center down here. I don't know, they're kind of having some management changes, so I'm not sure what's going to happen with them, but I'm now looking to partner with another healing center. I would love to start their ayahuasca program for vets and first responders. To me, I've just seen so many people go through profound life-changing experiences using these different medicines. I'm a huge proponent, and I will be for my entirety.
I love it. And again, Tammy Vincent, thank you so much for connecting us. I want to say thank you. Guys, if you don't know her, you need to know her. Check out her show. It's truly amazing. So, brother, I just want to say thank you. I'm truly humbled that we got to hang out together, and hopefully we can start a generational relationship from this point on.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure being here. It was a pleasure talking to you. The changes that you're affecting, pat yourself on the shoulder too, because people see these things, get inspired, and their lives get changed. So you're doing phenomenal work.
I love it. And guys, remember, I'm a big Joel Osteen guy, and I always end with this. If you listen to this show, you're no longer a victim of your past. You're a victor of your present and your future. So guys, thank you for always showing up and for being victors and no longer being victims. Brother, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you, and I can't wait we got to get together, hang out sometime. You ever get together, you're going to get a big hug. So I just want to say thank you, brother.
Absolutely. Had a great time, and we'll have to do it again. I'll have to have you on mine as well.
All right, let's do it. And guys, remember, vertical momentum. The only way to go is up. I love you guys. Have a great week.